All right, you are on Startup Club. We have a very exciting announcement today. We've actually crossed our 900 strong. We just clicked over. Our club is run by Michelle Van Tilburg. Welcome, Michelle.
Hello. Happy Friday, everyone.
Yeah, isn't it exciting? We clocked over 900,000 members. And if you're not already a member of Startup Club or you are listening to this in podcasts, feel free to join us every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern. And this is episode number 83. And we'd really like to see more of you on stage because it's when you come on stage, it really invigorates us. It makes the discussion a lot more interesting. And if you're in the audience right now, you want to share this with others, feel free to do so because today is going to be very exciting. We have a best-selling author. We have a top worldwide guru who's going to share with us some of his philosophies on how to create meaningful connections. And Michelle, you'll do an intro in a minute here as well, right? But if you haven't already gone to our or listened to any of our podcasts, feel free to do that as well. We have 83 shows, and I would often say that if you listen to every one of these episodes, you'd get an MBA in entrepreneurship. We've had so many great authors on, including the gentleman today, Mark Scherenbrock. And I'm going to pass it to you, Michelle, to do the intro, and we'll kick this off.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And congratulations to all of our members. We're now 900,000 strong here on Clubhouse at Startup Club. So we're so pleased to be able to bring Mark Scherenbrock to our members today. Mark is an amazing speaker, but above all that, he is an expert in helping people individually and personally create meaningful connections that permeate into their business life as well as their personal life. He speaks all around the world. Mark is actually a Hall of Fame member of the National Association of Speakers, and he is an Emmy Award writer and producer. So that's just a few of the accolades and awards to give Mark. But today we're really going to focus on his expertise and how do we create meaningful connections that, also translate into culture, right? Culture in your business, culture in your personal life. So we're very excited to have you to the stage, Mark. And I'm going to kick it over to Colin real quick here, and he's going to actually start with the first question. So, Colin, what is your first question for Mark?
Well, Mark, it's a fascinating book, Nice Bike, and I was just curious how it came about. Like, how did you come up with the idea and the concept? It's so simple, but yet so life changing. And Mark is new to the platform. As you can see, he's got his party hat there. Mark, the bottom right hand corner is the mute button. If you unclick, there we
All right,
go.
we're good.
All right,
Thanks,
very good.
Colin. I love it. Hey, Michelle, thanks for the kind introduction. Colin, great to be with you. Thanks for reading Nice Bike. Um, I'm glad you picked it up. As far as what Nice Bike means and how we deal with others, I had a speaking presentation north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I live in Minneapolis. Flew from Minneapolis to Milwaukee, rented a car driving north, and I realized immediately that I just landed in the Harley Davidson motorcycle 100-year anniversary. I mean, there are 500,000 hardcore black leather, serious bikers. I don't know about you, but I'm not a Harley guy, never have been. But that day in my beige Ford Taurus from Avis, driving through, seeing all those Harleys, I wanted a Harley. I want to be a part of that tribe. So as I'm driving through, I see all these venues going on, and I'm curious. So I pull over and I'm walking around and I see this one guy stand next to this midnight blue, huge, beautiful Harley. He looks like a Game of Thrones character. Big, huge beard, all tattooed. Looked like he was about 6, 7 feet tall. A guy walks past him, glances over and says, "Ah, nice bike." And immediately this conversation began. The guy started talking about it. He and his father, it was the deal they had together, how they worked on Harley since he was a kid. And there was just something magical as I continued to walk around, seeing different people, and I kept hearing Nice Bike, and the conversation always followed. And so Nice Bike has become my metaphor about how we connect with others. That's where that started, Colin.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And it's interesting for me. I have to say, like, one of the hardest things for me is sales. Is my personality. I don't have that high social personality. I'm a bit of an introvert, I'll say. And so your idea of this concept of making a compliment, but I think it really helps entrepreneurs like myself in business, because that's that concept of, you can sort of break the ice, you can sort of crack it. Um, can you talk a little bit more about how to make it authentic?
The key word is curiosity. There's a great quote from Barbara Jordan, first Black woman from the great state of Texas elected to Congress. And I heard her years ago, and her quote changed my life. She said, "It's more important to be interested than interesting." I think a lot of introverts, I think a lot of people think that to connect with others, they've got to be interesting. They have to have a hook, they have to have something going for them, something interesting to share. Whereas it's just the opposite. It's how you're interested in others, how you're curious about others. I, you know, if I'm with a brand new group of people, or if I'm on an airplane or talking to somebody I don't know, I'm just curious, and so I'll start asking them questions. 9 out of 10 people will answer every question I ask and consider it a great conversation. 1 out of 10 will say, "How about you? What's your story?" and ask the questions equally back. So I think that the first step for anybody is to know that everybody has a story, and it's to be curious to find out what that story is, where they came from, who they are, where they're going.
Yeah, we lost you a little bit at the end, Mark.
Okay, are you back with me now,
Yes, we
Michelle?
are. And I think you were saying, and maybe you are ready to transition, is that it's really about curiosity. And I loved what you said about it's not about you, yourself being interesting, but being interested. I think that's really, kind of says it all, right? It shows where your heart is. And it also shows other people that, like you said, there's some level of caring there.
I'm a Minnesotan, and growing up, I never felt terribly interesting. People from LA and New York are interesting, and I mean, Minnesota, we're just cold a lot of the time. And so I think to take an interest in others, to be curious, uh, like Barbara Jordan said, to be more interested than interesting is the real key.
Yeah, I love that. And I think now, like it's especially hard for people right now. Like Colin said, some of us intrinsically feel like, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to embarrass myself, right? Or I don't know what to say. That's a good guiding principle. But what do you suggest, in today's world? I think it's particularly difficult. And I actually just saw a study that came out, which was, I thought, kind of disturbing. It was like a 20% drop off in the number of people that actually said they had 10 or more close friends. Like our society is becoming less and less, dare I say, engaged. And I don't know if it's just because of proximity, but I'd be interested in advice that you have for us. A lot of us work remotely or we're having to deal with clients remotely. Like, how would you apply that principle in this kind of digital world?
One of my favorite quotes actually came from a sales rep that I knew who said, never forget a friend and never let a friend forget you. Um, it depends upon if you have friends, dear friends, or acquaintances, or people you just that are in your network or you're connected to. I just attended a birthday party for a 90-year-old named Harvey McKay. Harvey's from Minnesota, author of a New York Times bestseller, uh, Swimming with the Sharks, and not being eaten alive. Harvey had about 300 people that flew into Phoenix to attend his birthday, and I couldn't hire 300 people to attend my funeral. And it was a who's who's list of people in the speaking business and the publishing business and major players in both Arizona and Minnesota. The, what Harvey does that's different than other people is that he invests in his friendships, goes out of his way, and there's a difference between networking and connecting. I think oftentimes when I've thought of networking, it was about what can I get from other people, and I think to connect with others, like Nice Bike, is that you're giving something to someone else and expecting nothing back. Helping other people along the way, complimenting people along the way, or like TSA says, if you see something, say something. Well, that works in the positive light too, to recognize others for their efforts, for their gifts, for their uniqueness.
So and going back to that authentic comment, and this is interesting because Clubhouse is a new platform, and I think some of this could be deployed or used in Clubhouse as well. Like I can look at somebody's profile and say, "Wow, isn't that nice?" But let's just can you talk a little bit more about the authenticity of it? Because I think that's important because you can't just fake it, can you? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. It's taken a genuine interest in others. It's the golden rule: treat people like you want to be treated. To treat people with dignity and respect, not that they have to earn it right off the bat, but you give it off the bat. If you've ever traveled up in Alaska, I love the people up there with their attitude because they go out of their way to help people because someday they might be in a similar situation where they're going to need some help because it's remote. And so it's I think to be authentic is an attitude of giving and expecting nothing in return.
I mean, that really says it all, right? It's like that is what being authentic is. And if we really come from that good part of ourself, I can see how this works, right? So maybe you could give us a couple of examples, of how you've put that into play or how you've seen other people very successfully put that into play.
Well, I think for the people in the clubhouse, for everyone else out there, I mean, in the next time you see a Harley rider at a gas station or at a convenience store, wherever it is, I just want you to walk up to them and in a sweet voice just say, "Ah, nice bike," and then pause and see the reaction and see what they have to say, and you'll have that sense of giving them this nice affirmation, and you're going to give back a lot more than you gave. The next time you go to a fast food restaurant and get out of your car, out of the drive-through, and walk up to the counter, and the person that's working behind the counter, no matter what age they are, and instead of just treating them like a robot and ordering a number five with a Coke, uh, look at them, take a pause, find the name on their name tag, and say, "Hey, Michelle, how's it going for you today?" And just slow it down. You'll be amazed at the reaction you get back from somebody that's been treated like a robot, like a vending machine, treated like a human, and how they respond. I mean, those are the easy ones. Uh, but a sweet part of the Semi Nice Bike story that you might have read, Colin, is about I met David Wagner, who's the CEO of Jute Salons. I met him. I spoke at a national, conference for all people that work on the hair world, and we were discussing, and he gave me his card, and on his card, underneath CEO, it said Daymaker. And it's out of curiosity, I said, "David, it says Daymaker on your card. I've not seen that before. What's that mean?" And he told me the story about how he was working in a salon. He had one of his regulars come in, and he was working on her hair. At the end, he just said, "Ah, you look absolutely marvelous today. Uh, Thanks so much for coming in." She had left, and about a week later, he got a card in the mail thanking him because sadly, she had hit a really difficult time in her life, and her only solution was to take her own life. And she wanted to look nice with her hair done when someone found her. Well, because of what David did with his affirmation validation, how he nice spiked her, made her feel good about who she was, she found some help, and thankfully did not take that drastic action, and is living a full life today. And so she thanked him for being her day maker, and so he put that on his business card from that point on. To be that kind of person that, whether it's a client, a customer, a friend, a stranger, to be a day maker, to see something good in those around you and support them.
Now, how do I can see that? I can see what you're talking about with strangers. How about with people we know, our kids, our spouse, um, people we maybe see at work every day? What about how can we change the way we interact with them to help them have a great day?
I think, Colin, first of all, is just to take inventory. How well do we know these people? What do we know about them? What do we know about their joys or their challenges or their struggles? Um, when we find out more about those that are in our lives and we go a bit deeper, I mean, to find something to support them. If they have a here's a okay nice example of a grocery store in Minneapolis where Dale, the owner, one of his baggers, a young lady named Gabby, a name appropriately given because she was just a chatter. No matter what went down that she was bagging, she would ask about it. Anyway, Dale, taking an interest in her, found out that she absolutely loved um, this guy called the Dog Whisperer. I forget his name. I think it was Caesar something. And
Milan.
yeah. So he was coming to Minneapolis for a lecture, and Dale, the owner of the store, called her parents, found out if they had the date available, got 3 tickets for each of the parents and for Gabby. And in a conversation, "Hey, Gabby, I know that you love Caesar. He's coming to town, Minneapolis. I got 3 tickets for you, your mom, and your dad to go." And employee of the month, picture up on the wall, is sweet. But to know your friends, your team members, the people that you're with, and to find out what their hot buttons or interests are, and to support that with some action is a great way to approach others, Colin.
Oh, great. Well, very good. And I just want to let you know if you're in the audience and you would like to ask Mark a question, or maybe you have your own nice bike moment that you want to talk about, please raise your hand and join us on stage. It's Friday afternoon. We like to have fun in the afternoons. And also, if you like the topic, the second button from the end, and Michelle, I don't know if you shared the room yet either, or Mimi, but the second button from the end, from the left hand side, you can click that and share on Clubhouse. And I just did that myself right now. And that will go out to some of your followers on Clubhouse as well. So, Mark, let's go back to my anxiety and boat. We go to either a party or you're going into a trade show, and there's often these events that they have, like a sort of like a party at the first day, and you're walking in there, you've got your T-shirt on with your logo, and you know we want to be effective. We want to go into these shows. They're very expensive to attend, obviously, and your time is very limited. But we want to go and we want to meet as many people as possible and do it in a way that we can still form a meaningful connection. I know I get a lot of anxiety when I try to do this, but I was just hoping you could give us some advice around breaking the ice in large groups like that.
I'm gonna go back to the basics, Colin, and that's to be curious about others. And instead of having 10 different questions that are rehearsed in your mind to ask people, It's a matter of going deeper and deeper and deeper. Uh, where'd you grow up? What high school did you graduate from? What was our mascot? What were you involved in high school back then? When you're in high school, what activities kind of helped you to what you're doing today? What did you think you're going to be when you graduated from high school? Did you think you'd end up in this position? I mean, I think it's to, instead of bouncing from topic to topic to topic to topic, to find out about others, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are some challenges they've had. I I, I just find darn near everybody I meet fascinating, um, because there's always some gem there inside someone to share. And the best is when they start to ask questions back, then when it turns into a conversation. But as I said, 9 out of 10 people will just answer your questions. 1 out of 10 will ask questions back. So I think it's a matter of constantly trying to find out about others. And when the conversation ends, and you are networking and connecting with others, it's, hey, this is what I do. If there's anything I can ever do to kind of help you in any way, just ask. The answer will be yes. To give people some support back, I think that works well.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I've noticed, and it's happened in my own companies too, don't get me wrong, is that you see the stat, like the people who are at the show. Like we went to the paw.com went to the Pet Expo in Orlando last year, and I saw our staff with the paw.com shirts on, and all they were doing was talking to themselves. It's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine that you go to a trade show and all you do is talk to yourselves. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Very, very cool. Michelle, do you have a? I know you had a number of other questions that you wanted to ask as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to add on to the being in a business situation and finding something to talk about. For me, something that's also worked is, yeah, like just ask them where they traveled from and are they enjoying the show? And what in particular are they finding, interesting? Like that in itself can, lead to some really nice conversations where, both of you actually can really get something out of it. You might learn something that you didn't know, and you're making some kind of connection. I don't know about others in the room, but I'm always happy when I go to a show if I'm able to, have like a meaningful, intelligent conversation with people. And I'm sure that's the same for other people because you're representing your company and you need to take information back to your team, which kind of leads me to my next question mark. Something that you said is what is one that I think people really fail to do quite a lot, and I'm also including myself in that, is to continue to nurture those, relationships that you started to establish. A lot of people get back to the office or you're at home and you're busy and you just think, oh, I don't want to bug them and I don't have anything meaningful to say. I'd be interested to hear some of your thoughts on that because, like Colin said, making that first connection for a lot of people is the most difficult. So it's kind of like when you have a good customer, you worked very hard, you might have spent a lot of money to get them. So how do you like keep the relationship growing and going?
When you take an interest in others and you find out what interests them, what is it that they, I mean, and this is, I mean, it's not a new piece of advice, but because I know when I've talked to people, and after the meeting, I'll receive something in the mail, an article like on the Minnesota Vikings, because we had a conversation about the Minnesota Vikings, and this person takes the time to say, "Hey, enjoyed meeting you, had a great conversation, enjoyed talking to you about the Minnesota Viking football team. Here's an article that I thought you might find interesting," and they send it along, be it an email, be it a snail mail. Um, to again go back to the quote, never forget a friend and never let a friend forget you. To constantly be kind of investing in large and small ways, to kind of support that person. uh, I mean, is it too bland or too basic just to say to be a nice person? I mean, why did we love? For those of you that watch Ted Lasso, um, the American football coach coaching soccer, football in England, why did we like that character so much? I mean, it was a COVID show. A lot of us saw it, and we liked the show. I think because Ted was just incredibly nice, did nice things for others, was thoughtful, um, not a schemer, not trying to gain in any way himself. But I mean, one of the great scenes was every day that his boss loved these bars that he made for her, and he kept making them for her. I think that's you know, nice bike is all about being nice, a decent person to others.
Yeah, that's cool. I think one of the topics I like to bring up with people, like maybe because one of my companies is a pet company. I know Michelle has a cat company. We have a dog company at paw.com, and I often would try to bring, when if they have a pet, ask them about the pets, ask them to see a picture of the pet, and it's just, everybody loves to show pictures of their pets. I'm telling you, it's like to me that's an easy icebreaker, or a topic of conversation that you can have with somebody you don't really know. But if you can figure out if they have a pet, you can really break the ice with that one.
No question about it. We live in an apartment in Minneapolis, and in the elevator, we have a pet of the month every month, and people take great pride in their cat or dog hitting that elevator wall with their picture. It's a big, big deal. Yeah, I mean, to find out what other people are interested in is what it's all about.
Yeah, and then there's also the whining and dining. Well, Michelle and I, our last company, we had traveled to about 50 countries, and it was a company called Dot Club. And what we would do is we'd go to these companies and sit down with them and try to develop a relationship with them. We'd have dinner with them, and we had some really killer dinners and some very cool spots in the world. And over time, they became your friends, and they're still friends of ours today, which actually I think helps helps with the distribution as well. It's fascinating to see how that evolved. I don't know, Michelle, if you have any thoughts about our trips and our travels and
No, but you
all the
bring up
dinners and
a very good point. However, saying that, and we really, we were the front, us, Jeff, myself, and Colin were, the forward, front facing people of the company. So for us, we tend to get it more. One of the things that we did struggle a little bit with, Mark, and I think it goes back to your point about culture, is oftentimes people in the company, they would struggle with, like, oh my gosh, why do you need to go to China, why do you need to go to Paris, right? Why do you need to do these things? Almost like, not almost, they would say you're wasting company money. Like, how do you deal with those kind of, dare I say, politics in an organization, when us up here talking, the three of us, like, we know, we've lived it, we've breathed it, we know how absolutely critical it is. What would you suggest for people in our audience? They're at startups, they're working for a startup, they're doing a startup, and they oftentimes have to justify these kind of like face-to-face interactions. What would your suggestions be for them?
I think for everybody that's listening, they know how important face to face is. And they know how important breaking bread is with other people. I mean, one of the lessons that I hope we learned from COVID, we learned that we need to adapt quickly. We learned that, and we also learned expect the unexpected. But most of all, how important human connection is. Be it a wedding, be it a funeral, be it the best of times, the worst of times, we need to share those times with other human beings. Um, and I mean, it's social media is great. Zoom calls are good, but I mean, look at it this way. There's one. It's I like George Clooney. I think he's an amazing human being. It's one thing to see a picture of George Clooney. It's another thing to see him on the big screen. But to see him in an elevator and stand right next to him is a whole different experience. Not that I've had that experience, but I think Clooney's pretty cool. It's We need to be face to face. At the company events that I've been speaking at since COVID, every last one of them has been like a family reunion. To spend time with people face to face, to break bread, to uh, celebrate moments with them. It's a phone call is good, Zoom is better, face to face is everything. So I think when we're with people in a room, sharing that time with them, I mean, that's very important time.
And also, even when, let's say it's a Zoom meeting, and I'm not good at this. I get right to the point. I'm direct. I'm like, okay, whatever. But should we take a minute or two at the beginning to try to build that rapport?
That's a great question, Colin. Um, and I'm not on Zoom all the time doing presentations. My best presentations are live with an audience. To have that live interaction. I mean, it's kind of the difference between, for me, sitting in a movie theater and watching a comedy with two other people in the theater or 2,000 people in the theater. It's a lot funnier with 2,000 people, that human interaction. But so I wish I could say I'm an expert on Zoom calls, but I like your idea that to take a moment to share it to people, depending upon how large that group is, to share an opening statement and throw a moment around. One of the things, okay, Thanksgiving coming up next week for those of you listening right now. One of the things that we always do with our family when everybody's together, the kids, their spouses, the partners, the grandkids, we always do table topic. Where at the end of the meal, one of us, and now our grandkids, throw out a table topic where they ask a question, go around the room, and the rules are let that person talk for about 2 to 3 minutes. Nobody interrupts them and says, "Oh, what? I had an idea just like that." Just let them have their time, and we go around the room, and everybody shares their thoughts. And it's become, other than the Thanksgiving turkey and being appreciative and grateful, it's become kind of the highlight of our time together, of that table topic of sharing time.
Yeah, and I've done that with at my cottage when I have guests. We actually there's a cube, and you pull a card, and each person pulls a different card. And every time I've ever done that, everybody loves it because everybody likes to talk about themselves, right? And they just love it, and they have a real fun time with that. Well, that's interesting. Well, why don't we
Colin,
switch gears? Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't look. I should have. You must be Canadian.
yeah. You caught that, eh? I
Well,
moved
not the
to
A. It's
Fort
just in
Lauderdale,
Minnesota. We in
but
Minnesota
yeah,
we call a lake place a cabin. In Canada, they always call it a cottage.
that's correct. And I moved to Fort Lauderdale in 2001. But apparently, I do have a bit of a distinctive Canadian accent. I mean, I can't tell, of course, but others can. So
No,
yeah, it's a great country. I still have a place up there. We go there every summer, and but this idea of sharing and going around the table, table topic, it's something that's worked well for my family as well.
I love the idea. And see, you've got that Canada nice thing still going. Minnesota, we're like the 11th province.
Exactly, we're more similar than you are from other states. The Midwest, the very nice Canadians, nice Minnesotans. Um, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk a bit about company culture. I know that you know, we've had some shows on company culture before, but I'm just curious to get your take on how do we build, like, how does a startup build a really good culture?
Hands down, it depends upon that leadership team. Um, you did a great presentation or a great program on core values. You've had a couple of them, and one of the great opportunities I have as a professional speaker is to sit in the back of the room and listen to the leadership team, especially the CEOs, um, get up and talk to their company about where they've been, where they want to go, and what's happening. The companies where the CEO talks about the core values of that company. This is who we are. This is what we believe in, and this is our moral compass and what's going to guide us moving forward. The CEOs that take time to talk about the core values versus the CEOs that just show pie charts and numbers. there's a remarkable difference in the culture between those two different types of companies, where the leadership team has stated core values, they believe in them, they guide them, and they actively live them instead of just putting them in an employee handbook to be reviewed once a year, are completely different than those that make it up along the way. I mean, so the first part of my answer on that corporate culture has to do it. I can't overstate enough about how important core values are in the companies that I work with, that I have as customers, and that I'm a customer of.
And I think at Dot Club, we started our core values right at the beginning. We actually laid them out in phrases so that they would be memorable. I know Vern Harnish has done a lot of work in this area and talks about, you want phrases that become the language of the office or the language of the company. And a lot of those core values, interestingly, do link back to your own personal values. So I've actually gone through the exercise of creating my own personal values, and at each company, creating a set of core values. And it's interesting to see two or three sometimes move over. The one in particular that I was in most of my companies is integrity over money, and that's a when you say it isn't just a it's not just something on a poster. What we're talking about here is actually making decisions and firing people based on if they do not have the integrity, or they chase the money, but they do something that they shouldn't do in order to get that money. We've been faced with that problem a couple of times, and we had to fire some salespeople over some of the things they've done, so that we could adhere to that mantra. And it means we don't make money as fast. That is correct, but we will make money in the long term. We believe will be better off for the company. Um, so, any thoughts on just how immutable these core values can be?
I Here's what I want some of the people out there to do. Uh, Next time you're with a group of 5 people or so, or more, throw that table topic idea up and say, I have a table topic. Everybody, let's go around. I'm just curious. What are your core values? And I think you'd be amazed that how people have got to be take a time out to really think about it, because all of us have some guiding principles, some quotes, some words that mean a great deal to us. But I don't think there are a lot of us, because I've asked that question to a lot of people, and the answer doesn't come up boom, boom, boom. It's always kind of a thoughtful, well, now that you mentioned that, I think to sit down and write your core values out. And I agree with you. I love Vern's approach that integrity is a good word. A lot of companies use integrity within their core values. A lot of individuals do, but integrity over money, to make it a statement, I think is much stronger. But I mean, ask for the people out there right now, as you're listening to this, what are your core values? Could you sit down and write them right now? And if you haven't, do it. Come up with 2, 3, 4 short statements about what yours are, and then ask others the same question. And I think it's a remarkable beginning to understand how important they are, and that a lot of people have vague thoughts but not really articulated. But I mean, to go back to your question, number one is core values for the leadership team, and number two is to live it. Um, One of the greatest examples is within the U.S. Army or any military. The old statement of generals eat last, officers eat last. They take care of their soldiers in lower ranks first before they take care of themselves. I mean, I think that's a great lesson in leadership, to live core values and take care of the people that are reporting to you.
Yeah, you're almost talking about be humble and let's admit this fact. Every startup in the audience, every founder, humility isn't always something that lines up with our leadership style. We all think that we've got the next best thing and we're this, we're that, and we're charging forward, but yet being humble can actually, it reminds me of Good to Great with Jim Collins. He talked about level 5 leadership. I feel like you're touching upon that concept a little bit there.
There's a, I don't know if it's humble as much as it is humility is an important trait, but I think it's the authentic, back to the word we used earlier, the authentic caring about people that know it. Worked with a company called Cargill, one of the largest privately held companies in the US, the Cargill family in Minnesota. And one of their leaders, Dan Dye, I heard him speak. And Dan had a great comment where he said that every team member, every follower, everybody that reports to you has four basic questions. They are, where are we going? How are we going to get there? Are you with me on this journey? Do you have my back? I mean, if I go out there and get this done, am I going to be, you got my back? And finally, do you care about me as a person? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Are you with me on this? And do you care about me as a person? And if you can answer, if a leader can answer those four questions, they've built a team. I mean, that's core values, great leadership, and those four questions answered clearly creates a great culture.
Yeah, and, I first met Vern, I think, in 2000, and then um, I ended up hiring his business partner, Patrick Thean, to be my business coach, my CEO coach. And I've had a CEO coach now. He's been my CEO coach for the last 15 years. And the first company we had grew to about 600 employees. It was a small publicly traded company. And when we first started out, there was a sort of cool culture in the startup, right? It was fun. It was this, that, and the other. And then once you started adding, a leadership team and 200, 300 call center people and 200 programmers and whatnot, the culture started to, it seemed lacking. And so we after our coaching session, we put together four key pillars for the company. This was in 2000. I believe I'm doing this by memory. First and foremost is respect. So we had a lot of issues in the company around respect in each other. Recognize greatness, not good. Recognize greatness. When our customers succeed, we succeed. And there's one more, but I'm doing this from memory, right? So, but I also saw that we spend it like our own. Sorry, I remember that one because we wanted to make certain that everybody in the organization was thinking about is if this was their money, let's make the decision under that lens or prism. And I do know that I went to visit Zappos, and I saw that they had really put together a great culture. Unfortunately, the CEO had challenges, mental issues, but they really did a phenomenal job of that, I thought.
There's another company like that. I work with Portillo's. If you're from Chicago at all, hands down, you're a Portillo's fan. Portillo's used to be a hot dog stand by a guy named Portillo. Uh, Ended building it up into a great restaurant. A number of restaurants ended up selling it for about $1 billion. Uh, Investment company took it over, and really strong fans, but it started to fade. It kind of compromised some quality, kind of fell away from the original culture that they had. But a new CEO who's currently there, who's absolutely amazing. And they did a lot of Gallup poll and research with the front line. And the front line, they didn't come up with the core values and the culture from the leadership team, C suites. It came from the front line. Similar to what you just talked about, they came up with four words: um, family, fun, energy, and greatness. That whether they brought over a cake shake or a hot dog or an Italian sandwich, it was delivered with fun and energy, delivered with greatness, and the whole team feels like a family, and their clients and customers do too. So it's I think when you talk about authentic and talk about connecting with others, it's what values drive you in this world. Are you using others to get something back, or are you contributing to others to make their life better? Because that's something that we should do in this world, is to make others' journey just a little bit easier. And I think that's real connecting versus just networking to get something from somebody else.
And sometimes when you're running your own company too, it happens to me. A lot of my employees have become my best friends. Okay, and sometimes they say, well, you shouldn't have. you shouldn't be so close with your staff. You should keep a distance. But what are your thoughts on that issue? Should we really get to know our and become friends with the people that work for us?
Colin, that's a great question. And I wish I could tell you that I have the expertise to answer it, but I would just be guessing. Um, the the coolest experience I've had, I mean, because our business is a mom and pop business. Susie, my wife, runs it, and we report together and we work with all of our clients. But I did have a kind of a cool experience. Our daughter has a restaurant in Minneapolis. Our daughter Kate, called Brim, and she also has a concession, a food concession, for the past 3 years at the Minnesota State Fair. Minnesota State Fair is kind of a big deal. It's like running with the bulls in Spain. 2.5 million people attend over 12 days. And so it's an intense concession. Uh, each year I grill about anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 paninis a day. It's just a gas. But we have about 20 people working every day, a lot of them 15, 16 year olds, and it's their very first job they've ever worked. And the reputation we have uh, at the state fair that we keep hearing reviews on are A, amazing food, and B, really nice people that work it. And the reason it's nice is because whether it's a 15-year-old or 50-year-old, we tell them appreciate every single person that comes up here to this concession stand. Say something unique, take an interest in them, whether it's a t-shirt they're wearing or, hey, is it your first day at the fair? Don't ask routine questions. Just take a curiosity about every person so that we want, and then say thank you in a very kind way. So when it comes to whether it's a company and a team that you're working with, um, or just as an individual, it, it, that's what Nice Bike is all about. Making these sweet connections where people remember, wow, the food or service was good, but the people that deliver it were even better.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because, there's the verbal communication, but your body knows that you're being authentic. So one thing I think I heard in one of the speaking engagements you were at is you really talked a lot about being present, and that you really need to, if you're practicing this with, authentically, you're paying full attention to the person. You're there, you're not just talking to them to move along the conversation. So what, are the kind of verbal cues that you found are important for people in this, making these connections?
Nice question, Michelle. The starting point, and I think a lot of people can identify with it. I used to be able to, or I'm still a deal. When it comes to being present with others, um, I mean, you must be present to win. That's true in raffles, and that's true when you deal with other people, whether it's someone you've met for the first time or someone you've known for a lifetime. You must be present to win. We all have busy lives. A lot of things are happening in our head. But, you always hear about when people meet a famous person or a president, they say one or two things. They either say, I was a next going through the line, or when I was with that person, it felt like I was the only person in the room and there were 500 other people there. I think that is the gift of being fully present with others. That's number one. And number two, when you meet somebody else, you only have one job that's truly important, and that's to get their name and give it back to them. A lot of people know this, but how many times have we met somebody and 30 seconds later, we have no idea what their name is and we fake our way through? I think within that 30 seconds, to be fully present is to get that name, make a connection in your head, use that name, and do your best to find a way to remember people's names by using different techniques, which are out there for all of us. It's a simple Google. But if you can be present with somebody else, to know that they're the only person in that room and make them feel like that. Number two, to get their name and give it back to them. And number three, take an interest in them. What's their story? Um, I think those three steps are what making being present really work.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, in every form of our life, Colin earlier was asking, about even close friend and family interactions. Oftentimes we forget to extend to them those same courtesies. And I think all of us know if you give that just that little bit of extra and give really, that attention, look them in the eye, and that little compliment, it makes a huge difference. I know it does for me. Like when I'm laying in bed at night or in the morning, like I oftentimes think, oh, somebody said something really nice to me, or I thought something really nice about someone else. And I hope that meant something to them. I think at the end of the day and the night, 24/7, that's really what life is about.
I think especially when we're in situations where things are kind of busy and hurried. When you go through the TSA checkout, check-ins at an airport, and I mean, to take a breath and just ask that TSA agent, "How's the day going? Uh, has it been a busy morning? A lot of flights?" To take just a short interest, you'd be amazed at how they respond because no one has asked that question. No one has taken an interest. And it's like a curveball of human beings. Um, so, I mean, and why do we do this? Well, you've got to go back to your core values and why are you in this world? If not to contribute to others, contribute to the world around you, and to make somebody else's life just a little bit better. Um, I think that's a great reason to go out there and connect with others,
And I'm
especially people you
always
don't know.
surprised, not surprised, but it's always nice because oftentimes what I find is, the person on the other side, they'll be like, they're almost surprised, which maybe that's sad, but they'll oftentimes be like, wow, thanks so much for asking. Like people do really appreciate it. This is, yeah, something that is important to others.
And the other thing too, especially with the entrepreneurs out there, why do we do what we do? Yeah, and I, I think one of the most important things is I remember talking to an executive. He had a discussion with his boss. The boss said, what do we? It was with the Bose company. They make speakers, incredible speakers. He says, what do we do here? He said, well, we make speakers. Now, what are we really doing here? Well, we make really good speakers. He said, no, think again. What do we do? He said, I don't know. He said, we have 700 people that are working in this facility. We're providing a living and a livelihood for 700 families that might not have this opportunity wouldn't be for us. Our job is to create opportunities for other people to live a good life. So I think for entrepreneurs, yes, to develop a widget, a service, an idea that will make you multimillionaire, that's the dream. But along the process, you're creating opportunities for others to have a good living and a good life. And I think when you're driven to A, create something amazing, but B, to support others on their journey, I think that means the world.
Yeah, I think that is the ultimate, right? For any successful entrepreneur is if they can, and I know it is for Michelle and I, we want to find ways we can give back and help others. Um, I actually want to talk a little bit about the handshake. I actually saw a speaker talk about this once, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on this one, but he recommended that when and with the pandemic, I know it's a little bit different now, but when you walk up to somebody, hold their hand firmly, not too hard. Don't want to be too aggressive here, right? But hold their hand firmly and look right at their right eye, right? So you really are making eye contact, and then talking to them. Is that? And I did that to my son. I taught my son how to do a handshake as well. I mean, these things aren't necessarily natural, right? We have to learn these skills in business and life. Any thoughts on that, Mark? I know I'm coming out of left field here. I don't even know if you've thought about that before, the handshake, but I'd be curious to get your perspective.
I think no matter how you do the handshake, if it's, I'd agree with you. A good first impression is great. How we extend our hand, whether it's a fist bump or a handshake now, because of what we've been through the last couple of years, to look somebody in the eye, to get their name and give it back to them. These are all good techniques, but if it's from the heart and authentic, to show respect and concern for others, I think that comes through better than whether it's a strong handshake or a weak one.
Yeah, thank you for that. Rich, we have you on stage. We've had a quiet afternoon today. It might have been the way we opened the room. But in any case, Rich, you're on stage. Do you have a question or do you have a story you want to share with us?
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Colin. Thanks for inviting me up. Hello, Mark. Nice to meet you, and albeit virtually. A couple questions to Mark. Mark, as you were, you know, preparing to write your book and put that together, I'm curious to know what surprises did you discover in that journey? That's my first question.
Thanks for Rich. It's a great question. See if I can answer that quickly. I think the biggest surprise is that I had this premise about Nice Bike, about connecting with others, and it's all story driven, and it's stories from my life and the people that I've interacted with. And once Nice Bike, the premise is based upon three words: to acknowledge, to honor, and connect with others. And I had about 100 different stories. And I found out that, and I didn't know where the book was really going to go or how to kind of bring it into focus. And Susan said, you need to use your three words: acknowledge, honor, and connect. What those words mean and which stories fit. I think clarity was my biggest surprise in the writing process that made writing much easier, of having a clear view of where I wanted to go, what fit and what did not fit. I had stories that I absolutely love, but they're not in the book because they just didn't fit, Rich. That'd be my first answer.
Thank you. That's really great. My second question is radically different. My second question is when you received a call from a CEO from ABC company, why are they typically calling you?
Uh, the CEOs rarely reach out. It's somebody that's on the leadership team that's going to pull the meeting together. And what they're looking for more than anything else within a company meeting, when they bring me in, I mean, they're not bringing me in to do time management or how to effectively meet people, but rather they want to create an experience at that event. They'll have people talking, they'll have people laughing, they'll have people experiencing wonderful things together that they'll carry with them beyond the meeting. So, especially nowadays, it's not information and motivation as much as it is, can you create a community experience for our team at this meeting that supports our core values?
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
And thanks for coming on stage, Rich. It's nice to see you again here on the show. Just a reminder that you can listen to the show in replay if you came in midway through. Um, yeah, I think it's one of those shows I'm going to share with my son. I did that with George Walther. He wrote the book Power Talk, and it was a phenomenal show. You can hear that show now on your favorite podcast network. And once this one gets posted into the podcast network, I will be recommending it to my son because I think what we're talking about today is very simple to implement, yet can have life changing impact. And I call that a minor major. And we want as many of these minor majors in our life, in our startup, in everything we do. Mark, I cannot thank you enough for you spending an hour of your time to share with startups in this community, to share with us your ideas. And I know, even though I read the book, I've still learned other things today as well. So really do appreciate it.
It's very kind of you. It's There are a million and one podcasts, so for anyone to take the time, which is valuable in their lives, and listen in for a bit, is an honor beyond words. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Colin, for thinking about me. Thanks for reading my Nice Bike book, and I really appreciate you guys.
Excellent.
Absolutely. And
Thank
just for
you.
everyone in the audience too, if you haven't already done so, go to www.startup.club and sign up to the email list because we have some big speakers coming in, like Mark here. I'll tell you this: we have the founder of Reebok, Joe Foster. He's coming, but I'm not going to tell you the date. You got to go to the website to get the date. But it is in December, and we do this show every Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Thanks again, Mark and Rich, for coming on stage, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Nice bike.
Bye.
Thank you, and have a wonderful holiday weekend next week. Thank you.